Well, welcome everybody to Laughing Tears. I'm the artistic director of Story Night, Jodi Eichelberger. It's my great host to be your... I'm just checking to see if you're listening. And you're good listeners. I know this about the Story Night audiences. We have some, Laughing Tears. If you saw coming in tonight, we have based our themes this season on Jump's enormous inflatable collection of emojis. So this is now our third emoji that we have showcased with the inflatable unit outside. And but we have some people to thank too. I want to thank our Story subscribers. Raise your hand if you're a subscriber. Scattered all around. Thank you very much, subscribers. These are people who give us monthly support, and they receive in exchange tickets to the shows. If you'd like to become a subscriber, you can find that on our website under support. We also want to thank our season sponsor, Keenly. Thank you, Keenly. And tonight is a little unusual because our show sponsor is anonymous. But they chose a benefactor, which we'll tell you a little more about later. So, an anonymous show sponsor. That's exciting. All right. Well, I wore something special for you tonight, so I got to take this off. That's all I'm going to take off, though, just to assure you. So, my first job out of college was with a company called Tears of Joy Theater, which was based in Vancouver, Washington, at Pearson Airfield. We toured all over the United States, but mostly in the Northwest, primarily with puppet shows. It would be my partner and I in a Chevy van, 9 months of the year, just driving around to schools and theaters. But we also occasionally did do some bigger shows, and this particular show is a show for adults, which America is not used to puppet theater for adults. However, in Europe, this is not such a strange thing. The show we were doing was called Between Two Worlds, and the way it was described was kind of a hybrid between Romeo and Juliet and The Exorcist. Now, the character I played was named Honan, and he, all of the show, the design of the puppets was based on Chagall. So that color palette, someone is thinking of that color palette already. So my character was green, and he was really getting into the Kabbalah. He was very in love with this woman that was promised to him, and then her father didn't go through with the deal, and so he's pining after her. He's getting into the Kabbalah, trying to figure it out. So the first scene in the show, I'm muttering 36, 36, 36. The character's naked. He's green. He's rocking back and forth. 36, and that number lies the essence. 36. He's made out of neoprene, which is kind of a foamy plastic, very springy. So if I rocked too much, his legs would decompress like pool noodles and pop out in front of him, which wasn't quite the mood we were going for. It was quite of a somber piece. There were 4 of us, I think, in the show. The puppeteers are visible, dressed from head to foot in this earth-colored hat. We had scrim on our faces. We had gloves on. So we just looked like these kind of brown entities that move through the space, and we had the little characters that were on these giant rock monoliths. The show started with us processing through the audience normally, but we'd taken the show all the way to the East Coast for the National Puppetry Conference. This is a real thing. The National Puppetry Conference, and this was a big deal to us. This was kind of like our Oscars. Normally, when we had toured the show, we would process from the audience in the dark with candles. Well, the other puppeteers had candles. I had the Torah scroll, and I was singing the Kaddish prayer. So it was very serious processing. Mipnei ma ve'alma yorda. Well, at the National Puppetry Conference, we couldn't come through the audience. There wasn't a way onto the stage. So we had to enter from the wing. The other interesting thing about the stage there was that it was curved. And our order was one puppeteer in front of me, me, and then 3 puppeteers behind me. Well, I'm trying to sing this song with the Torah, but I notice the puppeteer in front of me who is entering first is winding this path like a slug in the night, leaving this random trail going in every direction. And it turns out that we had never done this entrance with the stage lights on, and they were blinding him, and so he couldn't see the front of the stage. So he's got the candle, and he's kind of walking randomly, and the puppeteers behind me can only see his candle. They can't see me. And so they're also kind of wandering. And I start hearing this kind of and I look and I can see that the scrims are puffing in and out because they are all laughing behind the scrims, which is great for them, but I'm still singing Ve'ma neshama, trying not to laugh. And when it became laughing tears for me was as I'm continuing to watch that puppeteer in front of me, and I see him adjusting his hands, and he's kind of feeling with his feet, and his finger got too close to the flame, and his glove caught on fire. The audience has no idea this isn't how it's supposed to be, I guess. And it brought us very much into the now of the performance. So much to the point that at the end of the National Puppetry Conference, Between Two Worlds and our ensemble was awarded the Unima Excellence Award, which is the highest award in American puppetry. Yeah, our Oscar. All right, how many of you are here for the first time tonight, have never been to a Story Night show before? Oh, there's a fair number of you. Great. Wow, we're lovely to have you here. We are true stories told live on stage without notes on a theme. These are your stories. Story Night has nothing in terms of what people are saying. It's all on them. Although a couple of things to keep in mind is we have some pre-selected storytellers that we've curated and worked with, but it's intermixed with a community story slam. To be part of that, you just write your name on a ticket and give it to our friends over here at the story booth. Now, if you write someone else's name and put it in the booth, it might start with laughter, but it often ends in tears. So we don't recommend that. The other thing is that if your Laughing Tears story is relying on a setting that's in an opium den or perhaps a brothel, we're a PG-13 show tonight. So save that for our late night show, which is happening on February 9th, where we don't edit it at all. But tonight we're trying to keep it, and again with the language too, we're trying to keep it under that PG-13 rating. And the other thing is to listen with curiosity. So some of the stories may make you laugh. Some of them might make you cry. Some of the stories might not do anything for you. And there might be a story that maybe is moving you closer to the angry emoji. And that's okay. That can be your experience, but it should only be your experience. And the only appropriate response to the stories is the applause emoji at the end. But do what you need to do for yourself, and let other people enjoy the stories around you. Let's see, what else do I need to say? I think that's about it. I think we're going to we have a packed show tonight. I'm so excited to share. We have such amazing storytellers that are joining us this evening. We have some surprises for you. So I'm going to bring them up in reverse order, and they're going to come up from the audience and sit behind me in these little chairs here. First person I'm going to bring up, but our last storyteller tonight, is going to talk about that place where it might be a sad event, but it moves into being absurdly funny. And being in that place is Jodi Peterson-Stigers. Come on up, Jodi. And then we also have tonight a person who is bringing laughter through wishes sealed with tears. Please welcome Shawn Reilly. But first up to the mic, and maybe we'll give him a little accordion fanfare. I think he would like that. Yeah. First up to the mic, ladies and gentlemen, the last man laughing, Greg Sisco.
Ominous. So in spring of 2021, I walked into a place called Mad Swede Brewing, and I put my name on the list for a stand-up comedy open mic. I spent about the next half hour or so just pacing and trying to get jokes straight in my head, just in a panic, until they finally called my name. And I learned that they had a tradition at the time in Boise comedy where when somebody went up for their first time ever, the host would get the whole audience to chant, "Fresh meat, fresh meat." You know, just to take an uncomfortable experience and make it a little bit worse. But I was glad that they did it because I wasn't quite fresh meat. Like I was not a professional comedian, but I'd done maybe 20 or 30 open mics over the course of the last 15 years. And it had been about 5 years since I'd been on stage. But just the fact that they did that to everybody, I was like, I think I can be funnier than they think fresh meat's gonna be. And I went up and grabbed the microphone for the first time at the Mad Swede. And I can't really tell you what I said at a PG-13 show, but it was a 3-minute set, which is pretty standard for an open mic. It's usually about 3 to 5 minutes. And it took about a minute and a half or so for me to kind of manage to endear myself. And then things started to pick up with some chuckles and some stuff. And I landed one huge belly laugh right at the very end, and then said goodnight and walked off. And I distinctly remember hearing one of the comedians say to somebody else, I wish my first set went that well. And it's like, yes! And I had looked up open mics in Boise online, and I had found out about Mad Swede just through search engines. I found out they had two locations and a total of 3 open mics per week. So very quickly, I went back for my second open mic, and it went even better than the first one. And then I went back for my third, and it is, to this day, the worst set I have ever had on stage. Just utterly humiliated myself. The crowd hated me. I forgot my punchlines. I was just up there panicking and sweating. And then I left the stage and would have just went straight out the door and home, but a friend had come to watch me for the first time. So I had to go back to that table where he was like, wow, that was really brave. That's when you know you had a terrible set, when they tell you how brave you were. So I went home that day, and I went to this legal pad that I had on my desk at home, and I wrote down set number 3, 3 minutes, total 10 minutes. I'd been keeping this little sheet because what had happened to me over the pandemic, I wasn't a comedian, but I was a writer. So I spent a lot of my time writing novels and screenplays, which basically meant all of my spare time was alone in a room staring at a screen. And I used to joke that the pandemic forced everybody else to live like me. And it forced me to reconsider why I was living like there was a pandemic when there wasn't. So I sort of promised myself coming out of the pandemic that I would find a hobby that was getting me out of the house on a regular basis. And I had always liked the idea of comedy, but I made excuses for myself for why I couldn't do it. I would say, you know, I'm not in a city where there are a lot of opportunities, or I really need to be focused on this other thing that I'm writing. But the truth is, I was just scared of it. I had a lot of social anxiety, not even just in terms of the public speaking fear that a lot of people have. But in a general sort, I was the guy who was like afraid at the restaurant to ask the people in the next booth over if we could borrow their ketchup. Like I just wasn't good with people. So the few times that I'd tried comedy, as soon as I had a bad set, I'd start making excuses of, I'm going to take a week or two and I'm going to refine. And then a week would turn into a month, would turn into a year. So what I had told myself over the pandemic was when I go back, I'm going to do at least 60 minutes on stage in 2021. And I was just keeping track. Every set, 3 minutes, that's it. And I figured if I get to 60 minutes and I'm hating it, I gave it a fair shot. But it would at least force me to keep going back after I had a set like that third one. So sure enough, I went back a couple days later, and by the time I'd been doing it for about a month, I was approached by a woman named Haley, who was running doing the booking for all of the Mad Swede shows at the time. And she asked me if I would like to participate in a competition called Comic of the Month. And I went out to this competition. It was 5 local comics. I didn't win, but I was second place. And yeah, they gave me $20. And it was a 10-minute set. So it was actually a triple milestone for me. It was longest set I had done to date. It was the first time that somebody paid me to be funny. And it was the set that put me over 60 minutes. I hit the goal. And that felt like kismet. That just felt like everything lined up. And so I didn't stop at 60. I kept going. I actually still keep the list years later. I'm at like 450 sets, and I'm at, I think, around 5,000 minutes on stage at this point. But I kept doing it, and I kept having, I think because I was part of this community of creative people in a way that I hadn't been for a long time, I kept getting pushed along further to, at first, things that I was resistant to, where they'd say, come do 20 minutes at this thing. And I'd go, I don't have 20 minutes. And people would go, I've heard you do 40 minutes of different stuff in 3-minute chunks. Like, just put a bunch of it together. And they would sort of talk me into this thing and the next thing. So always at the Mad Swede, or almost always, I was doing all of these shows, and I had all of my first milestones there. The first time that I hosted a show, the first time that I was a guest on a proper set, the first time I opened for a traveling comic, and even the first time that I headlined for a paying crowd who actually bought tickets with my name on them. That, to me, I thought that was like a pie in the sky. Maybe after 5 years, we'll see what happens. It took about 1.5 years of people pushing me along and trying to get me to do bigger stuff that I ended up having that experience at the Mad Swede. And then shortly after that, I became the host of the open mic where I started, which was the biggest comedy open mic in Boise at the time. And I spent about 2 years just as the regular host of that mic. And I reached a point where I was kind of tired of most of the jokes that were in my hour, and I wanted to get good footage of it. I was a long way from being approached by, Netflix or somebody wanting a special. Still am. But I thought, I could just do this. I could hire some local filmmakers and we could shoot this thing. So we filmed this special at the beginning of last year, and spent most of last year trying to edit it and get it exactly the way I wanted. And just as we were coming close to being able to release it, this message went out in a comedian group chat informing everybody, hey guys, Mad Swede is going out of business forever at the end of the year. Which hit like the death of a friend. It was like, I didn't really realize how much the place meant to me until they told us that they were taking it away from us. Because, all of the memories within a place kind of live in the walls. I think probably everybody's had the experience of going to a place from your childhood or something, and just everything comes flooding back as you stand there. So to sort of look out at the place and realize, like, we're not going to be able to do that much longer became this powerful feeling. And somehow I lucked into the honor/responsibility of being the person who would perform the last headlining show at Mad Swede before they closed it. And late last year, just before New Year's, we did that show, and I went back through all my notes because I wanted to sort of do a retrospective show where I could kind of talk about the place and everything that I had been through there. And I started digging through all these old jokes that I had told, maybe hadn't told in 4 years at that point. And I was coming across a lot of these social anxiety jokes. And I just sort of noticed, like, I don't really relate to this anymore. I'm not feeling it in the way that I did when I wrote it. And it hadn't even, I'd never made a conscious effort to stop doing social anxiety material, but I had sort of come into this as thinking, this would be good exposure therapy and it would get me out there meeting people. And little by little, I'd reached a point where, I had jokes in there about, like, during the pandemic, having extroverted friends who come home and go, I ran into my roommate at the grocery store and he was trying to hug me. And I'm like, dude, I'm happy to see you, but I don't want to die. And I'd be like, yes, that's a great way of describing how I live every day. And it's like, it's funny, but I didn't feel like that person anymore. And I thought about, like, a friend of mine has a belief that, like, people and places and things come into your life for the amount of time that you need them. And when they go away, even if it hurts, it's because you didn't need them anymore. And I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but I sure do feel like it's what happened to me with the Mad Swede. And I do feel like I have this one silver lining of this moment. The fact that we filmed my special right before it fell apart, without even knowing that it was going to be over, I began the special with this big, long, one-shot piece of sketch comedy that's just me and another comedian walking through the doors of the Mad Swede, and you can see every room that's in there as we cross through everything and take a seat at the bar, and the stage is behind us, and through the whole thing we're having this conversation where he's sort of busting my chops about every choice that I made in my special. And I was just like, the number of times over the last few years that I walked through those doors with another comedian and the two of us were giving each other a hard time about something that we do in our sets. The fact that I have that piece of video that has just immortalized it forever for me is something that I'm really thankful for. And it makes me sad that, a comedian who's starting today would not be able to share the experience with me of what the Mad Swede was, but it makes me very happy that it lined up perfectly so that I was able to experience that. So that's my story of the Mad Swede. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Greg's special is called This Is Not Good. And you can find it on his YouTube channel at Greg Sisco, GregSisco, at Greg Sisco. He needs a certain number of people to subscribe in order to monetize that channel. And if everyone in this room subscribes, he'll be about 30% of the way there. Very good. Thank you. $20 for second place, huh? We didn't get any money for our Unima Greatest Award in America. Yeah, it cost us. I feel like we don't always get to acknowledge people who make places for other people, and I believe a person mentioned in Greg's story is in the audience tonight. Haley Lanehart-Weiss, are you here? Would you stand up and wave for just a second? Where's Haley? Is she here? There she is. Blue City Comedy. Responsible for getting folks like Greg up on stage, giving a place for them to make that happen. Haley's also been a host for us. this T-shirt, actually, I'm realizing, when you were talking, what did you say? Jodi just said a little tight. I was going to make a comment of how pleased I was that it fit after 30 years. They do have a book that I published out in the lobby, and there's a chapter called Pied Piper Pillaged, and in it I mentioned that the police came to our hotel and got me out of bed in the middle of the night, and all I was wearing was this T-shirt, and this is the T-shirt I was wearing. I'm just realizing that. All right, I think we have a couple of Slammer tickets in there. We're going to try one of these Slammers out. And tonight, in honor, there's a little fight of who's going to bring it up to the stage. We thought it'd be fun for Laughing Tears if the tickets came in a little tissue box. There are no tissues, though, so okay. All right, let's see who the brave... Oops, I can't say brave tonight after that story. Let's see who the person is who's going to be first up on stage. And it is Amber Donahue. Amber, come on up. You have 5 minutes to share your Laughing Tears story. And at the end of your 5 minutes, if it's getting close, I'll come up and quietly cry in your ear. Or maybe I'll laugh. Maybe a touch is okay, too.
Hello, everyone. I did a late night story night years ago, but I'll try clean this one up for all of you. I also broke my femur 4 months ago, so excuse my limp and my awkward-looking leg and tennis shoes. Let's do an icebreaker really quick. My mom from Fargo, North Dakota, as an owl. Who? So, all right, here's a little backstory to my 5-minute laugh till you cry till you laugh. 3 things. 1, I was married for 15 years and divorced now for 12. 2, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I build a business and then I sell it and get out of it somehow and go on to something completely unrelated, and I've done that 4 times now. And 3, just a word, menopause. So, and I am from the Midwest. I will say and so too much. I understand that. I don't need to be, you can email and remind me if you want. But, so in my serial entrepreneurship that I do, I moved to Tucson in May of 2021 to open up a food truck park and a bar. So a whole big thing, much like Green Acres here. And in doing so, I hit every roadblock you can imagine, and I ended up it took 3 years instead of 6 months to do. And in that time, I also built that with my ex-husband, who had been my ex-husband for about 8 years at the time. But we still share custody of minor children. So that's how I landed in Tucson to do this. And I know so much about city council meetings now and planning and zoning and who to talk to and who can really make decisions. In this time, I also started perimenopause or menopause in Tucson, Arizona, where it's 100 degrees in March. It's hot. There's 2 seasons. There's the 80 to 85, which is November through March, and then March it just takes off, and you get up to 115. I didn't know anybody there. It was scary and lonely, and the business side was taking off, and we were getting a lot of press and a lot of publicity, and people that I didn't know knew who I was, or at least had heard of the project. And in all of this, I met with so many engineers and architects and just so many people I never would have had a chance to meet had I not tried to do this particular thing. And one day, a little baby engineer came to actually look at how he could reinstall new toilets. So that's something mechanical engineers do, and there's whole companies that are in charge of that. So he came and he was in the bathroom and he was measuring things, and then he came out and started talking to me, and we ended up talking for 3 hours. His name was Tanner. I'll let you guess the age range with a boy named Tanner. So Tanner asked for my phone number at the end, and he said, "Oh, well, I could help you out with some other things." And I was so much tanner, no pun intended, at the time. I was not white and, Idaho pasty. And we had started texting a little bit, and I asked my friends, is this flirting? Is he flirting with me? And everybody agreed, Tanner is flirting with you. Now, the thing about Tanner, and my friends can agree to this, Tanner looked like a combination of Jason Priestley and Jared Leto. He was too pretty to be talking to me, and much too young to be talking to me. And eventually, I'm the one who sells things. I'm the one that talks people into things. And Tanner was the one who talked me into things. Things where my mother would say, "Oh, Amber, don't tell your father. He's not gonna, what do your kids think?" So one of the hottest summers of my life, where I was dealing with hot from the feet up, hot flashes and brain fog, and I actually, they say you can't fight City Hall. I fought City Hall and I won, and it's on record. And so there's a new law because of me. All of that is going on, very grown-up, cerebral things. And then there was Tanner. Tanner and I didn't text every day. We didn't talk every day. We didn't even see each other every week. But when we did, we had some of the best adventures that I only hope that I can go on again in my life. We took a day trip down to Mexico to do things that you can't do in the United States. We did so many fun things. And at the very end of this 6-month escapade with Tanner, everything sort of came together also in my life. And he went on to move to California, and I'm sure he's married now or has a child. And I went on to break my leg and meet all of you people. But if there's one thing I can tell anybody out there, if you're between the ages of 40 and 60, you need to find yourself a Tanner.
There's a little sticker here. And would you mind going over and signing our release over at the booth? Can you get over there?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. We're going to have her go over and sign the release over at the booth there. They have some business ideas for you. Or maybe they'll sign you up for a dating app. We don't know. They're wired in over there somehow. Oh my. Baby engineers and plumbing. That was very delicately done. Thank you. I think we passed all the censors. All right, very good. I'm going to bring up your next featured storyteller. Please welcome his first time at the Story Night stage, Shawn Reilly.
I work with Make-A-Wish, and I'm the director of development there. If you're not familiar with Make-A-Wish, our mission is to create life-changing wishes for kids with critical illnesses. A lot of people think it's terminal. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Plug. I got a card in the back and some events on the table over there if you want to see it. But I want to share with you a wish, and this is actually my first wish experience. And, I heard a lot about what a wish means. I'm relatively new to Make-A-Wish. I have been in the nonprofit world, serving churches and other nonprofits for over 24 years now. 9/11 was a thing for me. I moved over from corporate, and not a day's passed that I don't love what I do. But the story actually starts in the basement of a church. And I was doing my thing, fundraising for this church. This church over the last 4 or 5 years, right here in Boise, had grown by 25% for the last 4 or 5 years. And we're sitting in this office that doubled as the children's ministry, the student ministry, and the pastor's office. So it was one of those things where they needed to expand their space. And I was hired to do a capital campaign to help them grow and not only make a bigger worship center, but to also make bigger children's and students and different ministry center for the church. And on this particular day in this basement, in the pastor's office, I was going to meet with the board. And with the board, I had been working with them for quite some time. And we've done some surveys, we've done some meetings one-on-one. We were getting ready to do this capital campaign. Yet I knew that in 2 weeks, I was going to start my full-time work at Make-A-Wish. So needless to say, I was a little nervous at the end of that meeting, and it went pretty well. The meeting went great, and okay, it was time. I had to break the ice that I was going to move on and go to Make-A-Wish, but I was going to finish what I started here. And I was going to make it really clear that the board of Make-A-Wish and our CEO said, hey, Shawn, you're doing a good thing there. You do that in your own time. Go ahead and finish. So when I had the opportunity to share with them, there was silence in the room. So here I am in the basement of this church. There was a couple smirks on the face like they knew Make-A-Wish. They were endearing smirks. They seemed to be happy. But there were some others just silence. And it was almost like it was so quiet. You could hear the hum, of the lights up above. So again, I reiterated to them, I'm here to finish. We're going to do this. And then I gathered my things together and I walked out the door. Well, as I'm walking out the door to this church hallway, I hear footsteps behind me. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? The negative self-talk in that moment was off the chart. I thought for sure I was going to get fired. And by the way, this was also my church. How could they fire me from my own church? And John, who was the chair of the committee for this church, not the pastor, he comes up, he puts his arm around me, and with a tear in his eyes, he tells me that his daughter had just been granted to take a wish with Make-A-Wish. And he was just so proud. It flipped in a moment, you guys, from being scared to death that I'd blown it, maybe even been fired, to just hospitality and graciousness of this dad who was seeing his daughter get a wish. Well, I had met with John for a number of months. I thought I knew him, but guess what? I didn't know him like I was going to know him. John and I would meet down at Flying M Coffee. I got to know his wife, Sally. I got to know his teenage daughter. His teenage daughter's named Lydia. She was born with only 2 working valves, which you need 4. When she was an infant, they didn't know if Lydia was going to make it. There were a number of surgeries. And now here she is. Here she is as a young teenager. I wouldn't say thriving, but surviving and being strong and courageous and doing her best. And I got to know that story about Lydia, Sally, and John and that whole history at that point. What it did for me is it made me go back and think about my upbringing. From the time I was in 8th grade through high school, my sister had a critical illness too. She had something called chronic pulmonary disease. She was in an ICU ward more than she was home with us, the family. I saw stuff in critical care units that I don't think I'd wish any 8th grader, 9th grader, high schooler to see. I still remember to this day, days I would lay in my bed, just praying to God that my sister would be healed, that the pain in my family that was going on for years now would subside and we would get to the other side. And this wish experience with John and Sally and walking with Lydia started bringing this stuff up. And I thought about it a lot, and John and I talked about it. And one of the things that I quickly realized is I had pushed down a lot of that pain that I haven't dealt with. And after a few months being in this and getting some help from some friends and my wife back there, hi Cindy, One of the things that I realized is I was able to use this, not to feel bad, not to push it down, but I had purpose at Make-A-Wish to give kids and families something that I felt like I was missing, that it lit a fire for purpose is something I wanted to do. And I got to tell you, I just absolutely love doing it. Lydia's wish now is kind of interesting. Lydia wanted to go to Hawaii. And what's interesting about it is she has two brothers that are both teenagers as well. And a dad, of course, John, and his mom, her mom, Sally. And as you can imagine, the kids knew she wanted to go to Hawaii. That's the wish. She wanted to swim with dolphins. She wanted to snorkel the blue waters. She wanted to go to spa with her mom. She wanted to be at the pool. All those things a young teenage girl would want to do. I mean, who wouldn't want to swim with dolphins, right? Here's the catch. When she decided about the trip, she wanted a girls' trip. No boys going. Can you imagine the two teenage boys? I could just, John and I would talk about it a little bit. The banner going back and forth. You know, the tension of like trying to tell a sister to change her mind. They were really in the Gulf. And I could just imagine John was saying like, the boys were looking at all the PGA courses. And they look so close and now they're so far. And over the next couple of months, that banner, especially as she took the trip with her mom and her aunt was a part of Make-A-Wish and had worked with kids granting wishes and knew exactly where Lydia was in her life. And I watched that family really come together. I watched that family really embrace it and not be bitter about that at all. So much so, on this very stage, right here, I had Lydia at our gala back in September share her wish. Whew, boy. And we call something called Serving Up Wishes is what we do at Make-A-Wish. We have a gala every year where we bring people together and try to raise money. And I watched her, and two tables right over there in that section were surrounded by Lydia's family, her church, her best friends, and her brothers. And I watched them as I sat right over here with my wife and some donors and some other Wish community and all the BSU athletes and coaches. And I just beamed. I beamed watching Lydia because what this young girl was saying and what she was learning is that she was going to be successful in life, not in spite of her illness, but because of it. That she was going to learn from her illness and what she's done, and she was going to be a stronger person for it. Guys, I had to learn that much later in life of how to use that. This girl's learning that at teenage years. And so that's the big part of my story. And one of the things that I have learned through that in this story is the importance that that wish started not at that Hawaii trip. Wish started in that basement office with John in the hallway. And it continued at Flying M Coffee as we met with him and Sally and Lydia and walked together. It continued even in hospital rooms and different places as we walked together. And one of the things I've learned more than anything from this first wish is that it's hard, but it takes courage to persevere those things. A couple weeks ago after all this, and I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about Lydia, John, what I've learned in this very room, the gala. A woman called me, a donor, after the September event. And she said to me, Shawn, I really want to be a part of the community. I want to not just donate, I want to get involved. What can I do? And I told her about volunteering. You could volunteer. And I said, there's two. You could be on the Wish side, be on the mission side of the community with the families. We do a lot of things like Wish reveals and different things with the Wish families. But we also do things like fundraising. She says to me, I don't think I'm strong enough to do the families. So I quickly said, hey, there's other areas that you could serve, you know, with us in what we do in the mission of Make-A-Wish. That night I realized I blew it. So I called her the next day. And I said, I blew it. And she's like, what are you talking about? How did you blow it? And I said, I'll let you off the hook. Just because it's hard, you don't know what it's going to mean to you. If you step into it and you give hope and love and connection for people dealing with critical illnesses, and you don't know what you're going to get back, I want to implore you to at least try. And just because it's hard, I want you to try and do it. And she said, okay. So that's my story. And thank you for listening.
That's one of the things I love about hearing stories is, the central character here, you might say, is Lydia with her wish, but then you see all these other people around the wish and how that event is affecting them too. Also, I know we have a lot of sensitive, caring people in the audience, and you heard a lot of names in that last story. I want to assure you that they've all been cleared, so it's okay. But if you are a slammer who is going to share a story that features another person in it, it's a good idea to change their name if that's coming up, just unless you ask them before the show, which is extremely unlikely. Shawn also recently had to step in for a coworker and organize the polar plunge up in Lucky Peak this January 1st, right? It was cold. Anybody here was part of the polar plunge? Oh, I saw some hands move, but you were just scratching your face. All right. Well, this kind of, it would have been helpful. Do I have any cold plungers in the audience at all? One. Thank you for, because my segue here is that I'm hoping this will warm you. So if none of you have, it doesn't work. We mentioned that we have a secret show sponsor tonight, but the benefactor is the Heart Space Center. And for our show sponsors, we have them send a little message about what they do and their program. Well, the benefactor for this secret sponsor is the Heart Space Center, and I got the email, and it's all written in verse, the sponsor. So since I have the talented Matthew Voorhees tonight, we are going to try to perform the sponsor message as a song. I suspect at least parts of these lyrics were generated by ChatGPT. So it doesn't all scan necessarily, but we will do our best. Matthew and I have not really prepared this, so with my limited knowledge of accordion, what I'm suggesting, I guess, Matthew, is that you can kind of do some chord progressions, and I'll just try to follow along, and we'll see how this goes. All right. Hopefully the message will still come across. Okay. Everybody has a story to tell, written in breath, a nerve, a cell. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it shows, sometimes it slips out as a laugh. LOL, who knows? At the Heart Space Center, we slow things down, listening through the noise beneath the sound. The giggle, the sigh, the breath held tight, even the awkward laugh. It's okay, it's all right. Move by move, breath by breath, we help your system find a little more depth. Because that LOL emoji moment, light and bright, can also point to something real, asking for space and light. The Heart Space Center offers trauma-informed healing modalities for private clients and groups of all abilities. From somatic experiencing, subtle yet deep, a gentle, profound way the body can keep what it needs to feel safer, steadier, and whole, unwinding old patterns. Exhale, letting go. Alongside yoga, meditation, and breath work too, supporting presence, resilience, and clarity. LOA included, it's true. So stop by their table in the lobby tonight. Come learn more, say hello, it's the perfect time. You can sign up for their newsletter while you're there for a chance to win swag and a $25 credit toward any offering they share. When you stop by, you'll receive a special treat that can't be beat. An extended early bird rate for their 2027 Costa Rica retreat. This extended rate is only for you. exclusive to Story Story Night, their favorite crew. Learn more at theheartspacecenter.org. This anonymous sponsorship is in honor of Jodi Eichelberger. Wow, thank you very much. Well, that's very nice. All right. If you are looking for a very special Laughing Tears experience, you might consider joining our volunteer board of directors. We are currently expanding the board and looking for some new members. You can also visit our merch table out in the hall. This isn't a song. No, it's not a song. Visit our merch table out in the hallway and let us know you're interested, and we'll follow up with you. Another role that we soon need to fill is that of our volunteer coordinator. We have had the same wonderful person in this role for many, many years, and she has decided it's time to move on. So here to tell you a little bit about that role, and if it might be something you're interested in, please welcome our volunteer coordinator and board member, Natalia Di Garcia.
Okay, well, Jodi already spilled the beans, but it's all right. So, hey everyone, I'm Natalia. I'm the volunteer coordinator, and I wanted to tell you a very quick story. So, about 4 years ago was the very first time I went to Story Story Night. The very first show I went to was also the very first time I was the volunteer coordinator. So, I had not been to a show before then. And I had been looking to build more community, and I knew about Story Story Night in the back of my head and knew, oh, that's like a really cool organization. I should reach out. So I did, and I picked between doing social media and volunteer coordinating, and that was a good pick. And just over the past 4 years, I have built just such good community with a lot of you here, and have built so many friendships and met my girlfriend. So all great things. And I just wanted to share that with you all today. If there's someone in the audience and this is kind of tickling your ear and thinking about, for you, if you wanted to build some more community and want to be part of something like this great organization, I would just encourage you to think about it and come talk to me at the Slammer booth during intermission or after the show, and I'd love to share with you more about it. And it's such a joy to be part of this crew, and I'll still be coming back for sure. So yes. All right, thanks y'all.
Thank you, Natalia. All right, so you have lots of things you can do during our intermission. You refresh your drinks at the bar in the lobby, visit our merch table. Also, you can let them know if you want to be a board member. I think Natalia said she's going to be at the Story Story booth, but we also have a board member at the merch table who can take your information if you're interested in being a board member, which meets quarterly, so it's not too big of a poll. And during intermission, Matthew's going to play some more and sing some more with his accordion for you. We'll be back in about 10 minutes for a powerful second act. Thank you. All right, we have a jam-packed second act, so we are going to reconvene here, starting with actually a featured song from Matthew Voorhees for this Laughing Tears theme. This song we've decided is called Can I Blame Anxiety?
I'm going to talk just a tiny bit about this song. First, I probably should ask this after the show, but was the point of Greg's story that it's okay, Mad Swede is closing because he got to do his special? Sorry, Greg. I do stand-up in town also, and I have this issue when I'm writing jokes sometimes that I confuse sad and funny. And I just have to cross out joke book and just throw it on the pile of sad diaries. And then sometimes it's even worse because I write funny songs as part of my set. And so it'll be in rhyme. And sometimes they'll just be on loose sheets of paper. And so I'll just have these rhyming suicide notes around the house. And so this is a song that I wrote thinking it was going to be funny. And I had my brother come and listen to it. And he was like, well, first let me get my listening beers. I subject him to my music a lot. And after I was done, he was just wiping away tears with a beer in each hand. And so I'm going to play that song for you. Do you like these chords? Or are you getting bored with the same old song played over? Oh shit. Or with the same old song played over, all over again. Should I just stop now, before the creeping doubt makes my brain all wrong, takes over, all over again? Can I blame society for my anxiety? Should I just take a look in the mirror? Would it make things a little more clearer to me? Can you still find hope when life is just a joke that we tell to pass the time? We are the punchline, don't you see? Don't you see? I'm running out of time. Only a few more lines till this stupid song is over again. Still I play my part from the end back to the start. Nothing matters when it's over, is over again. Can I blame society for my anxiety? Should I just take a look in the mirror? Would it make things a little more clearer to me? Can you still find hope when life is just a joke that we tell to pass the time? We are the punchline, don't you see? Don't you see?
Matthew Voorhees. All right, can we get our featured storytellers back on stage, please? Wherever they've scattered to. Okay, yeah, you got to enjoy that. It's not too late to sign up at the Slammer booth if you'd like to do that. In fact, let me go ahead and get a Slammer ticket now. Maybe we'll start with something from our tissue box. Matthew's song reminds me of one of my favorite theater shows at a fringe festival in Seattle where the audience all wore headsets and the director was on a mic doing the subtext of all the actors as they performed. No, it's a little harder. Yeah, it's a little harder. So you'd be watching these actors and you'd hear in your voice like, well, she was supposed to enter through the other door. Oh, she dropped a line there. The intent of that line was supposed to be angry, but she did it like melodrama. It's just like you're hearing all the subtext. I think that's really fun. All right. We are going to start off our second act with a slammer named Angela Hammond. Angela.
I really like the accordion intro. We should have that every time, I think. I'm in Toulouse, France, and I'm in the back seat of an old Volvo station wagon, which is being driven by a woman who probably needs medication and does not have any. I had been staying with her and her husband for a job interview. They wanted me to train their horses, and they had flown me to France to see if it would be a good fit. And it was not. But I got a free trip to France. And I was young at the time, I was only 22. And so when I went to my parents and said, I've been offered this opportunity for this amazing job to live at a chateau and train these people's horses and show for them, my mom said, well, I'm coming with you. And if you know my mother, this is not surprising. And so she did. So actually, we are together in the station wagon. And if you've been to Europe, I'm sure you're familiar with the beautiful roadside sort of cafes where sometimes you can't quite tell if you're in the road or in the cafe. And my mother and I, on our last nights in France, we had paid our own way in Toulouse to stay in this beautiful hotel. My mother has a champagne taste, which she passed on to me. And we're in the nicest hotel in Toulouse. And so she's dropping us off there after a very ignominious, I will not be taking this job, I'm so sorry. And they lived in France, and yet they were American, this couple, and were still kind of learning the way. And she drove into the cafe in front of this very expensive hotel, the most expensive hotel in Toulouse. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I have the biggest suitcase in the world because I took all of my riding things with me. I have boots and my helmet, and it's big. Bigger than these windows, width-wise. And it's an old hotel that has a rotating door, but it was like an analog French rotating door from 1750. And we are in the cafe, and my mom is incredibly embarrassed, and so am I, and we need to get our things and move into the hotel as swiftly as possible. And she says, get your bag and get in the door. And I was like, this bag is not going to fit in that door. She was like, yeah, well, it's a rotating door. Just go in the door. And when I tell you the door is as wide as I am and the bag is twice as wide as I am, that is not an exaggeration. So I thunk the bag up the marble steps in front of all of the horrified, beautiful French people who are in the cafe. And I go in the revolving door, and it's a little snug, and I promptly get stuck. And me and the bag are now stuck in the door. Fully stuck. I can't get out. There's a pane in front of me, and the bag is wedged. I was quite strong at the time. It's wedged right in there. Now there is also just a normal human door that my mother walks through. And she goes to the front desk, the fanciest hotel in Toulouse, okay? Fanciest hotel in the city. She goes to the front desk. I am in the door. She does not tell them she knows me. She checks in and she says, I think that woman over there is having a problem with the door. And then went to the room. And they had to come with a drill, like a rotating, not even motorized, like an old French crank situation, and unhitch the whole door and take the whole rotating door apart so I could come in with my bag. And I was like, merci. And anytime my mom tells that story, she laughs until she cries. Thank you.
The registration desk is right over there, if you wouldn't mind. All right. Tonight is kind of special because in addition to our curated storytellers, that are our featured storytellers that we have here, we have a couple of special guest speakers as well. This is not our usual template, but we do it sometimes. So I would like to welcome to our stage, please, Chris Alvaraz.
Hello. I was actually afraid I was going to fall right there, and I almost did. So, anyway. So 11 years ago, I was in a bad way. I had a bad addiction, and I was out. I had slept underneath the stairs in an apartment complex right here in Boise, and so I kind of, the people kind of knew me there, so once in a while I would go there and sleep and whatever. And so then this one morning I woke up under the stairs and I kind of got my stuff together, and I walked outside and I was tying my shoe and stuff, and I was in a bad way, and I'm like kind of just getting my things together. And this guy came out of nowhere, and he was like, hey man, do you want to take a shower or something? Do you need help or you need anything? And initially I thought to myself like, well, I hope he's not weird or something like that, And I guess I don't know. It's just paranoid. So one thing led to another, and he's like, I was like, yeah, whatever, So then I went with him to his apartment, and he's like, my girlfriend's there, don't worry, she's totally cool, whatever. And so we walked in, and he was like, this is so-and-so, and she was like, oh man, this guy's like, because I guess apparently he had helped a lot of people like this. And so he's like, can you make him some food and stuff? And she's like, oh my gosh, like Nick, whatever. So anyway, so I was like, he was like, do you need some clothes or like some shoes or something? And so he gave me all this stuff, and it was like really nice stuff. It was like Converse and Nike and like all this really nice stuff. And so I was like looking on the walls, and he had pictures of him with other skateboarders. And I when he came out of the room, he was like, I was like, hey, do you skate or something? He's like, actually, yeah, I'm sponsored, and I'm a pro skater, and this and that. And I was like, dang, it was just so crazy, Anyway, so it was really interesting to me because I had only been in Boise for about a year, and so it was like, I don't know, I never thought someone would show me that kind of kindness, And so one thing led to another. And I left, and I was like, hey, I got to go, you know. And he wanted to keep helping me, and I was like, no, I got to go. But he's like, before I left, he was like, hey, so if you ever need a job, you can go to the youth ranch and just ask for me, and I'll get you a job. And I was like, okay, cool, you know. And so 6 months later, I was at a hotel. And I was actually at the Travelers Hotel, which is across the street from Guitar Center right here. And again, I was in a bad way, and I was with some bad people and stuff. But I got super paranoid. This is like at 7 in the morning. And I just got really paranoid. I'm in this room with these people, and I mean, nothing's happening, you know, but I just got really paranoid. And so I left the hotel room, and I just started wandering around. I wasn't really paying attention. Like I had my faculties, but I wasn't really aware of where I was and whatnot. So I'm like kind of wandering around, and somehow I ended up behind the Idaho Youth Ranch, where the employees go in. And so I'm standing back, but I didn't know that when I was standing back there. I just saw this group of people standing by this fence, you know. So I'm like standing there, and they started to go inside, and I'm like, I'm just gonna follow them in, because in my head, this is really crazy, but in my head, I thought that my friends who were at the Travelers Hotel were going to blow it up, you know? So I was like, I'm gonna try to, and it's, I guess it's funny, but it's true, you know? It's not that funny, but it's whatever. So, it's really messed up. I really thought that. So I'm like, I'm gonna blend in with these people and walk in here, you know? And so I walk in, with these people, and no one said anything, and I guess my laughing tears moment kind of came when I was just standing there, and I'm like, that guy, he works here, you know? And so I asked this lady, and I was like, hey, does this dude work here, you know? His name's this, whatever. And she was like, oh yeah, let me go get him. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know? And he came out of the back room, and he was like, hey, what's up, dude? You know, you want a job? And I was like, yeah, sure. So it was bad. So, but he had enough mercy on me, you know. He was like, dude, I'll give you a job, whatever. He's like, just go right over here and fold these clothes. And so, you know, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like folding clothes. I'm like out of my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And I'm so glad you guys are laughing, actually. So I'm like standing there folding these clothes, and so I don't know. I was like, this is insane, you know. So I just left, and I get back to the hotel, and my friends are like, dude, where did you go? And I was like, I just got a job, and then I quit right now. So anyway, so now my story ends here, and now, like, that was 11 years ago. Everything's good. I'm a successful tattooer, and I found Interfaith Sanctuary. I work there as well. I'm the art director there, and yeah, happily married. I have a beautiful family. Everything's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And if you'd like to have the laughing tears emoji tattooed somewhere on your body, you can visit Chris at Walk-In Tattoo on Overland and Vista. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've looked at that Travelers Hotel and wondered if it was going to blow up too, so it may not be that paranoid, actually. You might have gotten our connection here already, because our next featured storyteller is the executive director of Interfaith Sanctuary. Please welcome Jodi Peterson-Stigers.
Thank you. So, how many of you had to run a homeless shelter during the pandemic? I did. I had to run 3 homeless shelters during the pandemic, and I had no idea what I was doing the entire time, because none of us did. But the things that we had to do, you're either laughing or you're crying. And the first thing that we were asked to do was we had to figure out a way to shelter people safely. And we were in this 10,000 square foot warehouse with 175 people, including families with children and medically fragile, and there was no way to create safety for them. So we had to raise up a hotel shelter. So we opened this new hotel shelter that was going to serve our families with children and our most medically fragile. And because we had this hotel shelter, the hospital contacted us and let us know that there was someone from the unhoused population who needed end-of-life care. And because we had this hotel shelter, we could actually deliver that care because we had hotel rooms where you had privacy. And so we said, absolutely, we will let this person come and stay with us, and we will help them in a dignified and pain-free way get to that other side of life. So we moved him into the hotel shelter. He was this beautiful 6'2" man with this really lovely dog, and our community wrapped themselves around it. We had never done end of life before, but it was COVID, and you did what you needed to do. And at the time, we had families with children, we had medically fragile, but they all were taking care of this gentleman. And when his life ended, he was not alone. He was surrounded by people, and he knew his dog was going to be taken care of, and he was peaceful. One of the greatest fears that our unhoused population has is that they will die alone, and they don't know how long it will take for someone to find them. So knowing that we were there really gave him comfort. And so we were in this old hotel that does not match code at all, and the hearse came with their gurney, and it would not fit into the elevator. I know. Because we were on the second floor, and he was 6'2". And so me and another staff member, we got him into his body bag, and we had to walk him down the staircase. And I remember being in that staircase with that body bag and thinking, oh my God, I'm walking down a staircase with this beautiful man in a body bag. And it was so uncomfortable and so sad and so like, and then we got downstairs and the hearse was waiting and they got him into the car, and I realized it's okay because we were able to give this man such a dignified end of life, and he was loved, and we did what we needed to do. And that was going to be a silver lining during a pandemic. But then I got another call. So right now we're running 2 shelters, but then it turns out that the unhoused population that's testing positive for COVID doesn't have a place to stay because they're at risk to the community and they're at risk in the shelters. And so we were asked to raise up a second hotel. And I'm like, what would I call that hotel? God, I wonder if the name COVID Positive Hotel is taken. And it wasn't. So we lifted up the COVID Positive Hotel where all people unhoused who were COVID positive could stay with us. And this hotel not only catered to the positive COVID, but also to guests traveling into Boise for the holiday season during a pandemic. And there was an indoor pool. It was glorious. So we bring our guests in, and we kind of let them know we're going to bring you your meals, we're going to have medical rounding, and you're not allowed to use the pool. It seems like it would be understood, but we really did have to explain, no, you're not allowed to use the pool. So we get them into this hotel, and we're at about 12 guests, and we're taking these intakes kind of all through the day and night. So my husband and I are getting very used to, during the pandemic, I am taking calls at 12 a.m., at 2:30 a.m., at 5 a.m. It's just nonstop. And so one night, the phone rings, and it's about 2:20 a.m., and I answer the phone, and my husband can hear me say, well, is the hotel still on fire? And he rolls over and he looks at me and he says, and Jodi, I know this is a family event, but I see no kids here. He said, you can't make this shit up. And quickly after that, I was on a Zoom call with my jammies, and my mayor was in her jammies as we did a Zoom call to talk about the fact that the COVID positive hotel was on fire. And I quickly went to the hotel where it was a 4-alarm fire. And they were rescuing guests from the second floor because at that particular hotel, the elevator actually locked down because it was so beyond code. It was so old that there was no way to get downstairs. And so the ladder truck brought them down to the ground. And when I got there, it turned out that the guests who were being hosted by the hotel who could use the pool had been gently transported to another hotel. And our guests were standing in a parking lot in the freezing cold rain with COVID. Because equity is not real. And we then had to adapt. Where do you take your COVID positive guests when the COVID positive hotel is on fire? To the 3rd floor of your other hotel shelter. So we made that work. So as you can see, there's this through line of adapting to a pandemic. So then suddenly, well, it's not suddenly, it's during the process, the churches are shutting down and the day shelters are shutting down as far as outreach and being able to serve food to our unhoused population. All those resources that used to exist to help kind of lift up our service, well, they had to take a break because they didn't know how to do it during a pandemic. And so we, the 10,000 square foot shelter who welcomes all, had no kitchen. And so a church bought us a food truck so that we could lift up food service for anyone in need, including the guests who were staying with us. And during that time, we were also running an on-site recovery program. And there was one guest who was really wanting recovery but having a hard time staying in his recovery. He would come in and then he'd relapse and then he'd come back and then he'd relapse. And one day he showed up on the stairs of that recovery. It was a portable trailer. He's sitting on the stairs and he's like, please give me one more chance. And the director's like, dude, you can have all the chances you want. And so he came back into that recovery program. He sat in the back of the class, but then the food truck was there. And this retired chef and my son were going to raise up this food service training program to train our guests how to help us serve all these people in need. And that particular student walked into that food trailer, and in that moment, he found his purpose. And he was like, this is what I want to do. I want to make food, and I want to serve my friends. And he found his recovery, and he was that first student that became so recovered because of his purpose that the Department of Labor was giving us funding to help lift up employment in our shelter because we didn't have the funding for it, and they hired that guy to be our food service trainer. And he got a salary which got him housed, which allowed us to hire him to become the food service director and to bring those guests in and to give them the same kind of purpose that he found. And oh my God, he made such an impact. And then we started to build, I don't know if any of you have heard that we're building a new shelter on State Street. Anyone heard about that? And in that shelter on State Street, there is the most beautiful commercial kitchen. It is designed as a training kitchen so that we can lift up that food service training. And that man that became our food service director, he helped to design that whole kitchen. And just a few months ago, he had a stroke. He had a stroke and he's not going to get better. So he's not going to be able to work in that kitchen. And that's been really, really hard for us. But he created the heart of the program, and our director of operations, Nathan, who's in the audience tonight, said, I know how hard this is for you, but we're going to have to hire this position because right now our guests are volunteering and they're keeping this food service training program going, but we have to bring someone in. I will put a job posting up. I will vet these people, and when I find someone special, I will have you come and meet them, okay? And I said, okay. So a few weeks after that, he said, I found someone that I think is really special. And he said, I want you to meet him. So Nathan and this gentleman, Alex, came to my office and I interviewed him. And he was perfect. He had lived experience. He had experienced homelessness as a child. He had dealt with mental health issues in his family. He had gone to Portland and worked for the Stone Soup Project, which is a food service training program for the unhoused there. And he was currently like a manager at St. Luke's in their kitchen, which was doing 3,200 meals a day. And I'm like, dude, you are so overqualified for our food truck. I don't know if you know what you're getting into, but I think we should take you over to the shelter. You should look at the food truck, and if this is still interesting to you, let's talk. And so Nathan said, I will take him over, and he did. And about 30 minutes later, Nathan came back, and he is white as a ghost and shaking. And he sits across from me, and he's like, you are not gonna believe what happened. I'm like, what? He's like, well, I took Alex into the shelter, and we're walking down the main area to get to the food truck, which is on the back side of the property, and I hear a woman's voice say, Alex? And then Alex turns around and he says, Mom? His mom had been living with us for 2 years. She was in our mental health program, Project Wellbeing. They had not known where the other was for 6 years. And they found each other in the main entry of our shelter. And they ran and they embraced each other. And they said, oh my God, I didn't know where you were. And she said, I didn't know where you were. And she's one of our most prolific writers for our newspaper, Word on the Street. She's one of our greatest artists for the Homeless Art Collective. She was so proud. And she showed Alex all these things that were in the paper. And Alex, I guess, was just blown away. And Nathan telling me the story, I reached back out to Alex and I'm like, oh my God, I heard what happened. Are you okay? And he was crying as he said, my mom has never been better. She has never been better than who she is today. Thank you so much. We did offer him the job. And his mom was housed last Wednesday. And that's why when you're not crying, you're laughing in the work we do. Thank you.
Small world. Slammer of the Year at the Botanical Garden, we worked with Alex on the food service from City of Good that was there. So he came over to Story Nights World as well, yeah. Jodi last shared a story on the Story Night stage almost exactly 10 years ago tomorrow. And now she's back here. And ironically, Jodi and I will both be back here again next month on the last Tuesday of the month. So Jodi and Jodi will be there. We're doing something a little different. So Story Night is focusing on our late night show in February. So our show is going to be at the Visual Arts Collective on February 9th. But I'll be back here on our regular slot, but we're doing something in conjunction with the Play Studio here at Jump. And there's some cards scattered around. The event is called Pachakacha. Labor of Love. Pachakacha is Japanese for chit-chat. And it's a different storytelling form. It's 20 seconds on 20 slides. So you're going to hear, I think we have 8 or 10 storytellers. Jodi's one of them. They'll have 20 slides, and they're going to tell their story with these slides cycling through. So it ends up being 6 minutes and 40 seconds or something like that. So that'll be happening here in the Pioneer Room on February 24th, but it's at 6 o'clock. And you can find information on that on the Jump website or pick up one of these cards on the tables on your way out. Pachakacha. All right, we have another guest storyteller. This is going to be fun. So please welcome to our stage, Nick Rogers. Hi, Nick. Here you go. Kind of stand right
So quaint accordion's like my new favorite thing. About a decade or so ago, I lived on the 6th floor of this apartment building, and I came home from work one day, and my girlfriend's like, there's people in the stairwell, and they sleep in there, and they scare me. And I was like, well, let's go make friends with them. Like, they won't scare you if we know them. And so I would go down there every day and pop the door open in the evening and go down there, roused everybody before I went to work, and made sure that they got out of there before the security guard came, just so they could have, a dry place, safe place. And so I was familiar with people in stairwells needing my help. And this one day, I'm leaving my friend's house one morning, and there's this dude in the stairwell, and I'm like, hey, man, what's going on, dude? And I was like, yeah, he's kind of sketchy. And but I was like, what do you need, man? And he just like looked at me bewildered. And I was like, just come with me to my house. So he came, and I was like, damn, I hope I didn't invite a sketchy dude to my house. And at the same time, he's like, oh, dude, I'm going with this sketchy dude. And my house is only about 4 blocks. We get to my house, and we walk in, and my girlfriend just looks at me out the corner of her eye because she knew that I had drugged a dude home from the cactus or from the alley or from somewhere where he needed our help. And I couldn't quite remember his name, but I knew that his nickname was Critter. And I'm like, don't say it. And he's like, oh, I'm Critter. I was like, and she's just like, again? How do you know more than one guy named Critter? And so, like, I give him a backpack with some clothing in it, some shoes and stuff, just some extra things that I had. And like 6 months later, he comes walking into my work, and I'm like, oh, what's up? And I'm like, stay right here, I'll be right back. And I ran to HR to get paperwork, and by the time I came back, I was like, but he'd already bailed. And I had some moments to think to HR and back, and it might not have been the greatest managerial decision of mine to give Chris employment on the spot. So I kind of was like, whew. And we don't see each other for 10 years. And due to my father's suicide, I became houseless. And there's a well-being group I knew that, mental well-being group, and I knew that I needed to get a grasp on it. And I walked in, and I talked to this wonderful woman named Nikki, and she got me all set up to start Phase 1 classes, and I came walking out, and there was a Honda always parked in a spot in the parking lot there, and it says, "Art sucks" on the license plate, and it would make me laugh like every single time I saw it. And the woman inside was just so nice to me that I was like, hey man, your license plate makes me smile every single time I see it. And he looks at me and he goes, Nick? And I was like, yeah, you're all tattooed and sketchy. I'm like, maybe I'm Nick. And he's like, get in the car. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm Nick still. And he's like, oh, it's too emotional to say in front of these guys. Just get in the car. And I'm like, well, this is to be entertaining at very least. And he explains to me, and at a moment I didn't quite, until he was like, oh, Critter. I was like, oh, yeah. Haven't lived that one down yet. And come to find out that he runs the art therapy group, and his fiance is the facilitator of a well-being class, and probably 8-10 months later now, I worked with his wife. I worked for Interfaith Sanctuary. And, you know, our friendship has just grown exponentially. I don't know what it is like to have a brother, but I know that, like, we're probably closer. Because you want to beat your brother up, right? Or he's got a bunch of tattoos and is way bigger than me. But, yeah, it's so nice to be able to live in your truth with somebody that's so close, where you pull zero punches, and I can say anything to him in the world. And I know that he would be resourceful and insightful, and he's just one of the closest human beings in my whole life. It's so crazy how you can take so many lefts in life and then run back into each other after 800 lefts in the exact moment that you need each other. Yeah, he tattooed my hand. So. Pretty adult decision. Yeah, so thank you.
I want to thank both of our guest speakers. Now you understand what we did there. Critter and Nick, and if you haven't, if you would visit the booth and sign our release so we can include your stories too on the podcast, that'd be great. That's so fun to hear the same story from two different perspectives. I've tried for a long time to find those stories. One time it was two twins who grew up together. I thought this will be great. And one of the twins was all for it and the other one didn't want to do it at all. So it didn't happen. And this is the part of the show where I share our message from our season sponsor. And I didn't talk about this with our musician tonight, but the tradition is that I ask the musician to play insurance music. Yeah. Well, your interpretation of insurance music on the accordion, if you would. File that claim quick. All right, yeah, no, we're good. Keep going. Was that minor or major? Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's go with minor, yeah. Have you ever found yourself Googling, what does a PBM do? Or is $1,300 actually a reasonable and customary price for a splinter removal? Or maybe it's when your employer's $47,000 hospital bill arrives for a pre-authorized procedure that was suddenly no longer pre-approved. You start laughing, and it's not the birthday cake in the break room kind. It's giving the Joker in Batman. Healthcare shouldn't be a joke, but the system is absurd. Ooh, Oregon, yeah. The system is absurd. Mystery pricing, denied claims for treatments people actually need, premiums that cost more than rent. Kind of like waiting for Taylor to find Explaining the Life of a Showgirl. You're not holding your breath. At Keenly, we're done pretending this is normal. We build benefits that make sense. We believe in transparent pricing, advocacy, and support that doesn't leave you Googling, what is an FSA at midnight? Your benefits should make you smile, not spiral. That's why we created Keenly, so you can have smart benefits that actually benefit your employees. Now you know what insurance music is. All right. Okay, let's get a slammer up here. We got some slammer tickets to close out our show here. And continue with our laughing tears emoji. Hearing Nick's story, I thought, gosh, another fun idea for themes for shows would be license plates. Then we could hear the Art Sucks story. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. I feel it. It's here. Thank you. All right. We have, I believe this is a returning slammer. It may have been a while though. Please welcome Rob McQueen.
So I don't think I could be further from a returning slammer. My wife and her beautiful friends convinced me to do this, so please be gentle. So in a previous life, I was an Army Special Operator. And when you start that career, you move to North Carolina. That's where all Army Special Operation begins. And when my beautiful wife and I moved there, I looked for where am I going to live? Well, I want to live in a neighborhood with other special operators. So I reached out and I found that neighborhood. I bought a house. We moved in. I started training. And for some reason, every single weekend at 9 a.m. on frickin' Saturday, every guy that was not deployed would mow their lawn. Now, when I say mow their lawn, all right, you have to understand this. These are the most fit, feared, toughest men on the planet, period, bar none, right? And they're all mowing their lawn in the smallest shorts you can possibly imagine. Now, I don't know what it is with special operations. We all have our own itty-bitty little short. So SEALs have UDT shorts, which are the khaki shorts that are so small, like Tom Selleck would be like, add a couple inches. And in the Rangers, we had Ranger panties. And I don't think I need to describe that any more than it says. So midway into my first deployment in Afghanistan, which is an intense gunfighter employment, I'm living in the mountains of Afghanistan for almost a year. About 4 months in, I take one of those small times when I can reach back and call my wife, take a breath, ask her how she's doing, how's the girls doing, how's family. She's like, life is great. I've joined a walking club. So all the women in the neighborhood have a club and we get together and we walk once a week. Now, in the moment, mind you, my brain hasn't quite gone there yet. I'm like, that's amazing. I don't really think my wife likes to walk, so this is kind of a new thing. She goes, yes, every Saturday at 9 a.m. So shortly after that, I leave the Army. So about 8 years later, in a few deployments, I leave the Army. My wife and I relocate back here to Boise. And we buy a beautiful home, and we're inside. We pop champagne. We do everything. You know, I've left the Army. It's time to move to a new thing. And as we walk out of our beautiful house, I make the joke. I'm like, you know, I'm really sorry that you don't have the eye candy or your walking club anymore. And as I say that, I look to my right. And walking out of my neighbor's house is a 6'6", 240-pound Adonis. To this day, still the best-looking human being I've ever seen in my life. And he is wearing nothing but shorts. Now, mind you, longer shorts, thankfully. And I look over and I literally choke on my words because I had not said it 2 seconds after that. Now, this would be okay if it was the typical, like, I've always been good-looking guy, right? You're gonna get a little bit of that aloofness, kind of a dick, like 6'6", 240, really good-looking. Nobody turns out well if you're that way for a long time. But no, this guy happened to have been a former center for Boise State. So he grew up a fat kid. So this Adonis of a man turns out to be the sweetest human being I've ever met in my life. And in that moment, he turns and looks at us, goes, "Neighbors!" and runs, picks my wife up off the ground and hugs her like, I'm gonna leave his name out, "So nice to meet you." And then he picks me up. And I cannot process what is happening because my wife is hysterically laughing. And she's like, I'm almost crying, like I cannot process this. So we tell the story, we become amazing friends somewhere in a terrible fit of decision on his part. He leaves his very successful job, decides to join the Army. I'm like, what are you doing? And has made it through and is now currently a Green Beret, so love the man to death. And what I love even more is hoping every day, because I told this story at his wedding, I hope every day that his wife in their new neighborhood finds a beautiful walking club so this can come full circle.
I know I was encouraging the slammers not to use people's names, but now I'm kind of disappointed. Also, I usually walk by myself, but a walking club is starting to sound... Wow, okay, that's what we get from the emoji laughing tears. Thank you to all our storytellers, all our guest speakers. And I got some more thank yous here, but I'm gonna do them over our Story Story Night theme song, written by Dan Costello. Stories come from the land as well as its people, and I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Shoshone-Bannock people. Story Story Night is supported by public funding for the arts through the Idaho Commission on the Arts, the Idaho Legislature, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Well, for a little bit. We also receive funding from the Boise Department of Arts and History. Remember, you can listen to our podcasts from all our shows or see the flagship shows on our YouTube channel. We also have a radio show. It's Story Story Night on Stray Theater, which you can hear the Sunday before our live show from 5:30 to 6 on Radio Boise. Thank you to our crew, technical director, podcast and video engineer, Stephen Baldessari. Thank you to our guest musician, Matthew Voorhees. Thank you to our photographer, Christina Birkenbein. Thank you to our volunteers and our volunteer coordinator. You met her tonight, Natalia DiJosia. Thank you to our board of directors. Thank you to our story subscribers. Thank you to Jump and the crew here for hosting us. Join us next on February 9th for Story Story Late Night. The theme for that show is Falling Up, and that is at the Visual Arts Collective in Garden City. Tickets are available now, but before I let you go, just one more thing to share with you, and that is Story Story Night. Story Story Good Night. Beginning, middle, now at the end. Authentic, long pause there, I know. Inspiring, spontaneous. So thank you. You shared your stories and you really listened. I might have come here as a stranger, but now I'm leaving as a friend. And tonight we learned if you're going through menopause, just find your tanner. And so the story doesn't end. See you next time. Thank you for being a part of Story Story Night.